This is the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board meeting. It is Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 at 3:01 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blyle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Fasella.
Present.
Friedman.
Here.
Nudo.
Here.
Ula.
Here.
Barnes.
Here.
Quorum present.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on any topic?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Friedman, and yes, I am George's son. Two items. First of all, as a combat veteran and a 4-year commander of the American Legion for the county, I would graciously like to thank the board for the free rides you provide to my fellow veterans in the area. We graciously appreciate it. The main reason I am here, I am a continual rider of the Northeast Connect. I live in the far northeast corner. My house is at the corner of Airport and Brownfield Road. I can use the app to book a trip in my sitting in my front yard. I cannot book the return trip sitting in downtown. It tells me I'm out of area. I have talked to supervisors. I have called in. This doesn't make sense. I don't know what needs to happen in the IT end of this, but that it'll let me do the trip in and not the trip out doesn't make sense. So I was just bringing this to the board's attention. I've tried to get to Anna and Carl to bring it to their attention without success. So here I am. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm graciously done. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone else in the audience would like to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address. This is an opportunity to make a statement to the Board of Trustees as a whole. We do not answer questions. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. The clerk will keep time. Sir?
My name is Jan Carter-Nickham. I'm a former trustee, Village of Savoy, for 20 years. And I'm here referencing the item I spoke at the church about last week, which is Ordinance 2026-7, annexing certain territory, Carl, Liberty on the Lakes. And the trustees in this room that were at the meeting the other night heard quite a bit of opposition to the annexation of Liberty on the Lakes, not of Carl, but the annexation of Liberty on the Lakes. And I know that it was presented to them that there's going to be a service loop that goes through their neighborhood. And there were a lot of questions about how that was going to work, especially because of the nature of neighborhood streets. But also there was a lot of discussion from the assembled group about options that are available to get a bus to Carl and not annex Liberty on the Lakes, either Savoy or Champaign. And I realize that this item is on the agenda tonight. It will probably be voted on here in a few minutes. And I would hope that there would be some discussion tonight, but knowing how public bodies work, there might not be any discussion, but it is it's a serious concern. The MTD does have, based on the maps that were presented the other night, some options available to getting buses to Carl without actually taking all of the property, the 300 or so homes that are Liberty on the Lake, Savoy, and Champaign. So one idea was even mentioned about having a turnaround on Curtis Road / Dick Helton Memorial Way, and having a turnaround on Carl's property that would allow the buses to exit back out and head back into Cherry Hills. So either an option of tabling for further discussion, further planning of this, or a lengthy discussion tonight or this afternoon of the topic that the trustees that were, or board members that were there heard about, would be a welcome thing for those of us that represent these areas or have represented these areas in the past. So I, as George knows, was in the transit business for a long time, 27 years, in the charter bus business. And I'm not a person that opposes transit, but I don't like to see the annexation of properties whenever it might not be necessary. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Al Hagan. I'm representing the property of Friendship Lutheran Church of Joy, 3601 South Duncan Road in Champaign, serving as a church council member. I wish to address the MTD board regarding the ordinance 2026-5, annexing certain territories, Cherry Hills. The property owner does not wish to be annexed into the MTD district at this time. This position is based on the following items. The property owner received a notice of the public hearing that was previously spoken to about Liberty on the Lakes. I attended that meeting. The annex indicates 4 properties that are going to be annexed. We're one of 4. I did not hear anything addressed regarding the proposal. The maps that were provided for the public review did not show this property or 2 other properties, so there's 3 properties of the 4 in this annexation that wasn't even shown on the map at the public hearing. So clearly we don't feel we've been given a fair shake. When asked about the location relative to the map, it took me 3 people through the staff to find out what was going on. They courteously sent me a plat that was developed by Burns and Clancy. That plat is included with the board's annexation. We did not receive that in the mail. It was not made available at the public hearing. So I think we were a little shortchanged at the hearing as far as any comments made or what the proposal was of the MTD to annex our property. Even though you will not answer these questions, I guess I pose this to the board. We request that the staff address the positive reasons for the property to be annexed. And of course, we'd like that to be documented with facts-based. And of course, we'd also like to know the negative impact if we are not annexed into the city. So I guess I also bring it to the attention that the ordinance 2026-5 presents 3 properties. Of those 3 properties, it addresses 4 properties. Of those 4 properties, 3 were not shown on the map. And it looks like it's an everything or nothing. There's all 4 properties on one amendment proposal. I'd like to hear from the board as to why these 4 properties cannot be separated as the other 2, the Ameren and the Liberty on the Lakes proposal is. So I think we would like to have more information before we're just automatically annexed into this mass transit district. So at this time, the property owner may wish to be annexed in the future, but we'd like more information. Thank you. Excuse me, I want to make one point clear, that if the board is not willing to separate our property from the other 3 properties in this amendment, I ask you vote nay for that amendment.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any other comments? Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Is there a motion to approve the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board meeting minutes from February 25th, 2026, open session?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, is there a motion to approve the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board meeting minutes from February 25th, 2026, closed session?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Also, is there a motion to approve the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District annexation public hearing minutes from March 17th, 2026?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll be moving on to communications. Are there any communications from the board? Hearing none, next is the managing director's report. Carl?
Thank you, Dick. This report is based on February statistics. The total ridership in February was 1,369,084. That is a 0.1% increase compared to last February. And the year-to-date ridership surpassed 8 million, which is a 3.7% increase compared to the same period of last year. The monthly operating revenue was 1.7% above February of 2025, and the year-to-date operating revenue was 0.4% above FY 2025. The February operating expenses were 5.8% above February 2025, and the year-to-date operating expenses were 2.9% above February FY 2025. The year-to-date operating revenues were $1.7 million above budget, while the operating expenses were $3.2 million below budget. And with that brief report, I will take questions through page 39.
No questions? All right, thank you, Carl. Next, we'll be moving on to action items. The first action item is to consider ordinance 2026-5, annexing certain territory, Cherry Hills. We're open to discussion.
I'll make a motion to put the ordinance up for a vote as circulated.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Dick, I think Alan.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
comment.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment, Alan?
Just, anything you want to comment regarding the audience participation?
I mean, relative to the Joy, or the Friendship Lutheran Church of Joy, if you want to see the letter that was sent, that's on page 50 in your board packet. We have never sent a map with the letters and the notification. It might be a good idea to do that, but we just haven't done that before, so we can take a look at doing that in the future. I will say the church is tax exempt, and so they won't be paying any property taxes. So I'm not sure what the complaint is. So I would say there are no downsides to answer the gentleman's question. The upside is that they become eligible for ADA service, so their I don't know if they call them parishioners or congregants, but they would be able, if they're eligible for ADA service, they would be able to use the ADA service fully to get to and from their homes and to the church services. We do not intend to alter any fixed route service as a result of this. It primarily is an effort to continue to comply with our annexation agreement with the City of Champaign that calls for us to annex properties that are eligible for annexation for coordinated planning efforts within the district and between the district and the City of Champaign. And so this is cleaning up a little area that had been neglected on the border of the transit district, and that's primarily the purpose.
Thank you.
Okay, we had a motion, as I recall. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Blyle,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Friedman. Yes. Nudo,
Yes.
Ula,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our next action item is to consider ordinance 2026-6, annexing certain territory, Illinois Power Ameren Services Tract. Is there any discussion on this one? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the ordinance 2026-6?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blyle,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Friedman. Yes. Nudo,
Yes.
Ula,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our next item is to consider ordinance 2026-7, annexing certain territory, Carl, Liberty on the Lake. Is there any discussion on this one?
Yes.
Go ahead, Alan.
It was a very good meeting that we had with several of the members, more than several, of the HOMA Association, and I think the discussion was centered around two issues, one being property tax increases and the other about the use of buses on the property in question to be annexed. And I thought there was a good intake from the group. And after the meeting, for those members that weren't there, after the meeting, the president of the association and several others, at least two, came forward and asked that Carl meet with, our staff, meet with them and take a look at the routes, because the routes in question were, they wanted to have either no route whatsoever or one of two other routes that were conducive to getting the bus back and forth in the right direction. And to that end, maybe Carl or Amy would comment on the meetings that occurred or conversations that occurred afterwards with those people in question.
Yeah, I can touch on that. There were three individuals who volunteered to participate in a exercise, I guess, or at least participate in the process of examining alternatives. As Alan noted, there was pretty resounding pushback on MTD bringing service into their neighborhood. They did not want service. And so we looked at ways that we could shorten the route while continuing to serve Carl, because that was the main purpose of this effort. So we had several participatory email exchanges with those individuals, one of them being the president of the Homeowners Association, and I think those were productive, and while I'm not qualified to be a spokesperson for those individuals, they did indicate that they thought the alternatives were better than the original proposal. I don't know that they were ringing endorsements, but they at least thought that they were better and more appropriate for the service level that that neighborhood desired. So I can show you some maps if Tech brings up the first one. This is a map of the original proposal. Just to orient you that the road at the top of the map is Curtis, and then the road, the north-south road is, that route line is on is Mattis. And so what we had originally proposed that it come down Mattis and then turn onto Declaration and go through that roundabout there onto Freedom Boulevard and then turn left on Congressional Way, and then that would, the main bus stop, there would be bus stops in the neighborhood, but the main stop serving Carl and the senior assisted living facility would be, I don't know what the name of it is or if there is a name, but it's basically the entrance to the Carl facility. And then it would continue back to Mattis and go north on Mattis. And so that was what they primarily did not like. So Tech, you can move on to the second map. This is their preferred alternative, which is that we come down Mattis and enter on Congressional Way and then turn left or north onto the Carl property, winding around to Freedom and then exiting back out onto Curtis. That is actually the route that we originally proposed and talked to Carl about, and they ended up arriving at the decision where they essentially denied us access to their property. And so we have had a follow-up conversation with them after the public hearing to revisit the topic and try to see if there was a way that we could warm up the reception from Carl to us entering their property. And while they said that they were willing to have a conversation with us, their answer was still no. So that left us with the third option, which the group of homeowners said they prefer over the first option. They still preferred the second option over this, but this was better than the first option. And so this is that we would, off of Curtis, we would enter onto Freedom Boulevard and go south to Congressional Way, and then use the bus stop at the Senior Living Center and the Carl as the main stop for those two facilities, and enter Mattis then and go north on Mattis. So that dramatically shrinks the level of service, but also utilizes far fewer roads in the neighborhood, and they said they preferred that. They didn't desire it, but they preferred that over the third option. So that's kind of where we are. I do want to just say, just for clarity, I don't know if any of you are unsure about this. You're not voting on routing or the service, and so should you choose to follow through with this annexation, that does not lock us into any of these routes or anything else. So we will continue having conversations with Carl. They said they were willing to have additional conversation with us, and so we will continue that effort. The routing doesn't get locked in with the annexation effort should you choose to go that route. And Jay or I can answer any questions about the routing or the annexation.
So I just had a question about two questions. So with the annexation, in order to, if we were to do the route that was just proposed on the screen eventually to serve Carl, it is required that we annex the entire neighborhood regardless of if we're providing service that far south. Is that correct?
I would not say that it's a requirement. I would say that breaking parcels apart starts getting really dicey in terms of who's in and who's out, and that opens up a whole different kettle of worms with homeowners in terms of equity and fairness. And this ordinance, as it's written by our corporate counsel and the engineering firm that did the surveying work, doesn't contemplate that. So we would have to go back to scratch and start all over again, and that would, we likely would miss this service year, and so we probably would push any potential service to Carl out a year and a half.
Okay. My second question was, you know, when you look at the differences in the maps, I mean, it's a pretty significant difference in terms of the service provided. So I know that we're voting on the annexation part of it, but would the board be part of discussions regarding the routing eventually, you know, in terms of later on once that's decided, or how would that work?
There are a couple of opportunities for board input. One is we'll have a service public hearing, open house, and so board members can weigh in at that point. And then as a part of the budget process, any new service like this would be a part of the budget, and you would have the opportunity to weigh in with approval on the budget.
Okay. Yeah, I think just from my perspective, you know, being at the public hearing, like everyone has said, there was resounding opposition. Part of it was regarding, you know, the original map that was shown, which it looks like we're not locked into that, so I think that's positive. I do also think that we do, you know, Carl on Curtis does need service. I mean, we've gotten requests for it, people need to get their appointments and so forth. I think we just need to be kind of slow and careful about how we roll out that service. That's just kind of my opinion after hearing the comments at the public hearing and audience participation today.
Thank you, Mark. George?
I'd like to say something not only to my fellow board members, but to our visitors about belonging to a community. When you are part of a city, you get various services, some of which in Illinois are provided by separate governing districts. For example, if you're annexed to the city, you are automatically annexed to the sanitary district, and you probably couldn't live in your home if you didn't. Well, there are various services, school districts and the transit district. To be part of the community is to be involved in all of these districts. And moving out to the edge of town doesn't necessarily help, because the town keeps growing and eventually surrounds you. So this is kind of the inevitable result of just being here, of being part of the community and gradually absorbed into these various governing bodies, of which MTD is only one.
Anyone else? Bill?
Just to build on that, I was sort of digging through tax bills online. So Liberty on the Lakes already pays into the health district. This is despite the fact that the homes there are on city sewer. They don't have septic tanks that environmental services would review. The residents are relatively affluent. They mostly don't rely on public clinics, and there are no restaurants in Liberty on the Lakes. Along the same lines, I'd wager to guess most of the residents have not requested township general assistance, and they don't spend nights in the homeless shelters that the township runs. But nevertheless, a line item on the tax bills in Liberty on the Lakes is the township general fund. And as a more local example, this summer, the entire city, including downtown, Campus Town, North Champaign, is investing in rebuilding Mattis Avenue, millions of dollars to build sidewalks, curb, and gutter in order to allow for the construction of more housing and development on the north side of Curtis Road. So, you know, some of this just comes down to where do we draw the line on support for a transit district. Certainly if individually given the choice, I would say the majority of suburban neighborhoods in Champaign-Urbana would probably, you know, people would come out and say, no, we don't need transit. And they'd probably say, no, we don't need a township. And a lot of areas might even say, no, they don't need a school district. But, you know, in this specific case, the need for annexation is made especially urgent by the fact that we have a long-term care facility and a major Carl Clinic facility. But regardless, it has been our policy that all property in our immediate community should be contributing to transit. And I feel like it would be deeply unfair to the remainder of the district if we start picking and choosing which properties contribute to transit. And a large part of this is our community is unusual in its economic reliance on, you know, federal and state and worldwide sources of funding. The engines that drive our economy are healthcare, education, and research. And all of these are largely funded by things like Medicare, student loans, federal grants, and research funds. And without liberally minded ideas like transit, you know, we wouldn't be able to be here. Our community really wouldn't exist. Part of attracting and keeping world-class students, researchers, physicians, and professors is making sure we have amenities, making sure we have a thriving core. And a big part of that is the ability for them to get by without having a two-car household. You know, the reason people pick Champaign-Urbana instead of someplace like Houston where you have to drive everywhere is a lot of these really brilliant people are coming from major cities all over the world, and even many of our students that are in their 20s have never had a driver's license. And many of our professors that are coming in now and doctors at the hospital in these clinics, they don't drive. Transit is really on a, you know, as far as these major economic engines, the people that are crucial to them rely on transit. So we have heard you guys and we have listened, but I think there are community-wide issues at play here, and that's sort of why I feel like we still have to support this, but I do appreciate the input.
I have a quick query. I apologize, I was not at the public hearing. Other than the property tax increase, what was the other chief complaint from the area?
I think the entirety of the complaints, again, I'm not their spokesperson, but I think they were, of course, complaining about the property tax. And then secondarily, they were complaining about they didn't want buses in their neighborhood. They don't want service.
But they didn't say why they don't want buses? Like, they don't like the color of the buses, or?
I think most of the comments that I heard were centered around we have families with children playing in the front yard, and so I think that there was a feeling that there was a safety concern. I feel like I have to mention, since you're forcing me to talk about it, that we drive our buses all over this community in neighborhoods with families and young children playing. And my family, my kids grew up on a bus line, and our buses interact with neighborhoods and families just fine. But you asked me what their complaint was, and I think that was a primary focus of it. Alan, do you want to layer in?
No, just, I'm raising my hand, yes, you're right, that's what I...
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, yeah. I believe, it's my own thought as a transportation professional. Transit services enhance the community if it is safely managed and operated. So I don't see any sort of safety issues, buses traveling in my neighborhood road, following the speed limit signs, and also other traffic control and regulatory signs. So that would be my position, and I cannot speak to the increase in property tax. That's a totally different topic. But I appreciate the comments we received from the neighborhood. But again, my position would be to vote for this particular ordinance.
I have a couple of questions for you, Carl. And for the benefit of people watching or here, as well as the board, how does this subdivision is part of the Unit 4 school district? So for students who need service, who are part of the Unit 4, I live in a neighborhood actually that we just discussed, which was Cherry Hills, which does have service, and my children have used service to the middle school and the high school. So my question is, what does that relationship look like currently, and how would this impact that? That's my first question.
Okay. That is a question that we have not carried forward yet with Unit 4. We are waiting for new leadership to come on board with Unit 4. So I'll answer the question regarding the current state of it, and then I'll have a coda to that. But the current state is that Unit 4 does the yellow school bus transportation in this neighborhood. So because this neighborhood hasn't been a part of the district, it was not even eligible for MTD school bus service, and so that's never been a part of our agreement. But because of that, it's not a part of our current agreement. Now, we'll be bringing next month to you the new agreements for the following service years for both Unit 4 and District 116, or at least I believe we will be, either April or May, we'll be bringing them to you. So we'll have new agreements, but we won't, we haven't gotten any indication from Unit 4 or 116 that they're looking for service revisions at this point. So once the new administration at Unit 4 gets into place, and over the next year, the following year, that will be the most likely time that we'll be having conversations with them as to whether or not they're interested in this neighborhood being a part of the school transportation agreement. We're not rushing into that, primarily because they're having the administrative changeover, but also because we are hiring to be able to provide this service that we've been talking about. Doing school transportation in that neighborhood will require a different employee level to be able to accommodate that, and our planning department will have to do a fair amount of planning to integrate that service into our existing fixed route and school route service. So we just haven't done that work yet. It's a fair amount of work, and so delaying that a year will give us time to do that. That was the coda to the current state.
But what I'm hearing from you is that there are buses that go, school buses that go through the neighborhood currently, and as there are children in the neighborhood that presumably will need transportation in the future to presumably middle schools, or potentially exists currently children who need transportation to children or to high schools and middle schools, correct?
Yeah, both of those things are true.
Yes. And then my second question is more of about the background of this. So as I mentioned, I live within spitting distance of this area, and watched it go up. So Carl existed before the homes, correct?
Correct.
And so can you, again, just give us a sense of the timeline here of how we, just very briefly, where we got here? Because in essence, I'm thinking that this is, 10 years late, in my opinion, but I know there's lots of processes and other needs of property owners that have happened since then. So can you just give us a short reminder of that process?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact year that the Carl Clinic at Curtis and Mattis opened. At a minimum, it's 10 years. I think it's between 10 and 20 years, and maybe closer to 20, but as I sit here, I'm not recalling what the exact year was. Carl rightfully saw the need. They needed to expand their services and have the facilities facility to accommodate that expanded service, and that was the location that they chose. I can tell you, I was not in this position, but I worked at MTD when that happened, and there was quite a community uproar that they built it outside of the district, and that there were significant numbers of people complaining about not being able to access that facility. Carl made their decision. It's their right to do, and they made the decision to be there, but it was for decades impossible for us to provide service to them because of the annexation law and the specific eligibility requirements that state law has in order for us to be able to consider property as annexable. And so for all of this time, the properties in between our border and Carl and now Liberty on the Lake, it was taxed as farmland, and the area that we wanted to get to, the area in between was taxed as farmland, and the area that we wanted to provide service to was not contiguous to the border. So those two factors, eligibility factors, prevented any eligibility. What has happened recently is that coming from the side, I'm kind of doing this as you're looking at it, the west side, there were some property owners who voluntarily allowed us to annex them, and if a property owner voluntarily allows annexation, then that sets both of those eligibility, well, it sets the taxed as farmland eligibility requirement aside. They still have to be contiguous, but these were, and so it created a path for us to annex this area to be able to provide service. And so that is a relatively recent development, and so this just now is, we find ourselves in a position where we are able to do this so that we can provide service.
I also just want to thank Phil for bringing up the Mattis investment, as those of us who live in that area who've been watching the power pole movement and everything else that's gone on, holes dug and everything else, that is going to be a significant investment and is much needed in that area to handle the level of traffic. So thank you for bringing that up.
Anyone else? Alan?
The philosophy I've always had on annexation is we really, I will always vote for annexation because of the terms that we have with the city to provide service as needed and to the greater good of the community. And I think it equalizes, everybody should have fair equalization of their tax base as those that are in the city throughout. But the biggest reason I have is the greater good, and George did a wonderful job of explaining that. There are services that we don't use but are needed by everyone. And I go back to the issue of some that were there at the meeting said, I will never need a bus, I'll never get on a bus. And that's just an impossible statement to make until you get into shoes that maybe don't fit you today but will fit you later. and especially what we provide for the disabled and people who need to get from point A to point B. This is a social safety net for those that don't have a car and those that need to be on an appointment for a dentist or for a doctor or for getting to work or getting groceries, and I just think it's part of it. Now, the other issue of the route, I believe in conversations yesterday with Amy, the second option that we were shown in our drawings here offers the closest proximity to a drop-off point for Carl. And so it's serving the purpose of getting people to Carl, which is the whole, this is the real reason that we're trying to do this, is to get people who need to get to Carl as close as they can be without going along with Carl's indication that they don't want to provide it on their internal road, private roads. So I just wanted to make that clear, and I believe I'm correct in that, correct, Amy, as far as the proximity for drop-off? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve ordinance 2026-7? So moved. It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fasella,
Aye.
Friedman,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes?
Ula,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our next action item is to consider Resolution 2026-5, Downstate Operating Assistance Grant for fiscal year 2027. Are there any comments or questions?
I'll just briefly say this is, and primarily because we have two relatively new board members, this is an annual resolution that we do. It is a requirement of the grant application that we submit. In fact, we're getting close to the point of submitting the application. We're beginning work on it right now to the state. So this is, you frequently hear us, probably more frequently than you want to, you hear us refer to DOAP, and it's DOAP, Downstate Operating Assistance Program, and this resolution is a requirement of that grant application. And we do it every single year to secure the operating grant.
Carl, just one question. Is there any significant difference between this year's version and last year's?
Well, I don't know what your definition of significance is, but I suspect not, because the only difference is, I believe, are the dates in it. This is language that is, they give to us and say, here we need your board to pass this resolution. So we update the dates, like at the bottom of page 93 where it says the 25th day of March 2026. That's today. And so every year we update that for the board meeting and that kind of thing. I'm not aware of anything else changing. Yeah, Michelle's giving me the shake of her head. So yeah, that's it.
Then I move approval of the grant application.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Brown, Fasella,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes?
Nudo,
Yes.
Ula, Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our final action item is to consider approval of the Mid-Illinois Concrete and Excavation Contract for Shop Grates, Phase 2.
Good afternoon, Josh Beerbaum, Maintenance and Facilities Director. So some of you who've been on the board for a little bit may recall us talking about shop drain grates last year, and it's something we'll talk about for the next few years. So we did have a phase 1 project that was finished up last summer, and this is phase 2. So these shop drain grates, just as a reminder for some and for those who are not familiar with this, shop drain grates run throughout the entire 803 facility, And these grates are designed to take all of the water runoff from the buses, any leaks from the buses, water, snow, anything like that, funnel it all. It goes out through the north end of the building through a triple trap, so if there are any oils, coolants, anything like that that would be intermixed, those get separated out, and then the water just goes into the storm sewer. The issue with the drains at present is that the concrete is crumbling around the drains, causing them to fall in, which creates trip hazards, vehicle hazards, several hazards. And so if you look, I think it's on page 97 of your packet, you'll see kind of the photos that will just kind of outlines this area, and you'll see the portion that we did in 2025, and then the portion that we're looking to do here in 2026, which we're calling Phase 2. You'll see the northernmost portion of the 803 building. Those drain grates will be replaced there, and then also in addition to that, stalls 61, 62, 63, which are bays where we pull in the articulated buses for service. Those drain grates are the same age and are showing signs of fatigue as well, so those will be replaced in this Phase 2. And so at current, we're asking to authorize the managing director to execute a contract with Mid-Illinois in the amount of $272,692.04 for the purchase installation of those shop drain grates in the 803 facility. Any questions?
Just a curiosity, what's new versus old on page 97?
New versus old is looking at the facility. So part of the facility is existing, and then they expanded onto the building in 2017. So I believe what you're looking at there is the new portion of the 803 garage, which those drains are relatively new, and so they don't require any maintenance. That's why we're only doing the older portion, the existing portion of the building.
George, I'll just center that for you a little bit. I know you were familiar with what we called the Dabro building that we purchased from Minnesota Plywood. That building was next to our old office of 801. And we, I think it was 1997, we outfitted the Dabro building as our new and upcoming maintenance department. We put the body shop over there and the bus wash and that kind of thing. And then in like 2001, we fully moved the maintenance department over there and built on just a little bit of extra storage and the maintenance bays that the technicians worked on the buses in. That's what is called old, because the new portion with the white roof, the old portion has the black roof with the solar panels on it. The new portion isn't all that new anymore, but relative to the old portion it is. That was in 2016. We started construction and finished it in 2017 to expand the maintenance department. We tore down 801, the old administrative office, and built out the entire maintenance department as it exists today.
Yeah, I remember when you moved it from 801 to 1101, I didn't realize that there had been an expansion to the building. I guess I wasn't paying attention.
Yep.
Josh, can you tell us the total cost of, so adding Phase 1 and Phase 2 together? I don't see the numbers on Phase 1, just so we can get a sense for that.
Not without a calculator.
Okay.
And I don't have my phone.
I don't math either, so it's all right.
I can math, but not at that level. Ashley's.
Give us a minute and we'll get that to you.
Again?
276, thereabouts.
Well, 272 is this one. The last one was 176.
Oh, you're asking me to...
You're asking for Phase 1 and Phase 2 added together.
The total of those two, yeah. Ashley's on it. She's got her phone calculator.
And presumably, we're going to have a few more phases. You can't do them all at once, or we would have to like find another place to move all of what we do.
That's exactly right.
That's a valid point. This is really disruptive to service to a very high level. So we break it out into phases, and we always do it in reduced service so that there's not as many buses operating, so we can actually close off this lane and just totally rearrange storage for the time being. But the expectation is this is Phase 2. There will be a Phase 3, and then a Phase 4, and that will finish out the rest of the building.
By reduced service, you mean we're doing this when the kids are on vacation for the summer?
Yeah. Yep. Kids are on vacation. We're still working. Yes. And then Ashley's math says about $450,000 for Phase 1 and Phase 2 so far.
May I ask, What line item in the budget will this be paid for out of?
I should have mentioned that. My apologies. So this is in the fiscal year 26 budget, and it's in the line for miscellaneous facility improvements, and it'll be funded with 100% local capital reserve funds.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the Mid-Illinois Concrete Excavation Contract for
So
shop
moved.
grades?
Second.
Phase 2. It's been moved and seconded. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Friedman. Yes. Nudo,
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next regular Board of Trustees meeting will be on Wednesday, April 29th, 2026 at 3 p.m. here at the Illinois Terminal, 45 East University in Champaign. Thank you to all of you for being here. This meeting is adjourned.
Dick, we are moving into closed session.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll have a 5-minute break and then we'll resume with closed session. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah. Dick, we need a roll call to go into closed session. And to close this meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion that we adjourn
So
the
moved.
main meeting?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Do we need a roll call?
Can I just add that you should add that the meeting will then will end after the closed session?
I'm sorry.
So I'm going to make a motion that we close into a closed session followed by immediate adjournment of the open session meeting.
That's it.
It's been moved and seconded. And will the clerk please call the roll?
Blile,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Friedman. Yes. Nudo. Barnes.
Yes?
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll take the 5-minute recess and then begin the closed session. Thank you.